Board meeting, meeting for March 23, 2023.
Motion to approve?
Support.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carry. Item 7, public participation. Anybody from the public like to make a comment on
Sure.
item on the agenda?
Chairman, we have Mr. Rayner that would like to speak. Mr. Rayner, could you please stand at the podium? Thanks.
What's our time?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good
Well,
morning.
good afternoon. Mike Rayner, Chesterfield Township, Michigan. Actually, I don't want to take much of my time because I'd like to ask one of you to respond to 3 key issues that I've been addressing for the last year with very little response. So my 3 main concerns as I've been working the bus stops, kind of a unique opportunity that came out of nowhere. But there are 3 things that I have questions about. My number 1 question is the problem that we have with getting transportation to the workplaces that are not being served. In my particular community, 23 Mile Road happens to be a very heavily used area with small manufacturing companies. Unfortunately, companies that pay the wonderful wages of $11, $12, $13 an hour, which amount to bus riders. So I went into an employment agency real quick and I started to talk about buses and this gal jumped all over me. And she said, you know, I'm never going to vote for millage again. I said, well, why is that? She said, well, I could hire about 80 people tomorrow. Paying decent jobs here. These are $18, $19, $20 an hour jobs, but there's no transportation on 23 Mile Road. So that's kind of got me started on that. Also, after participating in a community cleanup event, I really got a firsthand exposure to what's going on in the bus service. I was fortunate to get a little article on the front page of the Macomb Daily. I was interviewed on Channel 2, just because I'm paying some attention to what's going on here. So besides the lack of, and I'm using up my time like I always do. So the second issue is the condition of the bus stops. So I clean the bus stops. I've adopted one, and that's pretty interesting because the adopt a stop program sounds very, very good. So I read it, I heard about it, and I said, okay, I'm going to adopt one. So I found out that I was adoptee number 11. 11 out of how many hundred shelters do we have? So I adopted it and of course immediately discovered a number of issues that are addressed in my 3 or 4 letters and my email that I have a copy of that I sent to each one of you. And so I addressed, I guess I'm going to take my 5 minutes. I hope you answer me in some form sometime. So I was asking your maintenance man that came by. I said, geez, you know, this concrete is ridiculous. I can't, you know, I can't clean this up. I said, don't you guys power wash or anything? He said, oh, our power washer hasn't worked for months. I said, oh, well, that's nice because there's no way you can get many different things that are on the concrete cleaned up. So that's been a major issue. So I do it. I get hot water from home and I get some concrete cleaner and a stiff brush. And I do what I can to clean up, you know, the bus stops. And I must say the reception that I've had, like I said, it's a long story that 5 minutes won't cover. But not only the riders, but I've gotten such positive feedback from the bus drivers. They get to know me, they wave, and they're always thanking me for what I'm doing. And it's like, do any of you ever like take the bus? Do any of you ever like stop at a shelter and kind of look at it? See what it looks like to you? You know, the trash that's spilled and overflowing around. It's really very disappointing, I must say. And I know my time is probably quick to being up, but you know, I've had a year now to work on this and I've communicated, like I said, in this year's time. And in all due respect, folks, nobody's ever said, hey, Mike, thanks for the letter. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I've been a retail store manager my whole life, and I'm used to reacting quickly, getting feedback from my customers, my employees. And so I just hope that somebody in some forum, maybe we can have a sit down, drag out. No, let's not put it that way. Let's just have a conversation. And see what we can do then, because to help these riders. I'll tell you what, they're so grateful to me. During the winter, I'm shoveling snow, right? And a rider comes up and he said, oh, hey, give me that shovel. Give me that shovel. I'll do that for you. And I put up temporary shelters. That was the big thing. I know I'm out of time. I put up temporary shelters. And, oh, we can't do that. Doesn't have a building.
Well, I want to thank you for your volunteerism. We appreciate that really. And we hope some people would know about it and have more than 11. And some of the question you asked, if you could give your information to one of the staff, and we will forward some of the answer for it.
Well, I must say, Bonnie has been especially supportive.
Thank
She's
you.
been terrific. She's my go-to person. And Mark Starnes has also been very helpful as well. So I'm getting some feedback from, some of the other folks there. So thank you very much.
You're
And,
welcome.
sorry we missed the meeting last month, but we're not going to miss the next one. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Can you please state your name and your county, please?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Joseph Valdez. I'm a business owner and I live out of Fernie. I want to say thank you for cleaning up the bus out because I pay people to clean up. I don't got time for all that, but he's a good one, better than I would. I live out of Fernie. I live off the 430 line, and since they brought the 430 back, it's been really good. Really good service. Now you guys are proposing cuts to the peak hours only. I spoke to what's his name back here. Thank you for telling me some information, but you guys should take that away from the 430, put on the 492, because there's a lot of people. Like last week, I walked about a mile and a half with a little nice little Caucasian lady. She waited for the bus. The bus never showed up, so we walked a 9 mile together to that 7-Eleven. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm sorry. And leave it alone. Like, you guys begged us to pass SMART for 10 years in Oakland County, begged us to go to Auburn Hills. I went to Auburn Hills. I was in the news and told the city council, you think it's smart to opt out of SMART? You need to leave the stuff alone. Like especially the 430 bus. More people taking it even since, that it came back from the pandemic era, we're still in it, but still leave it alone. And another thing I have a complaint about, the drivers. You guys got a contract that's not been going on they have been on a contract for 6 months. I have a friend that's driving for SMART. I've been friends with him 20 years. He drove like 20 hours to almost basically 20 hours the other day. I'm not gonna name his name, but he'd been driving for like about 20 hours that one day about a week or two ago. He was telling me about it. You guys make, I guess what, 19.11 or something like that. Can you live on $19 an hour? I bet you none of you get paid $19 something cents an hour. All right. Nobody can live off of that. You guys want to have, let's go try this bus. Let's go try that. Let's go see this. Let's go see that. That's irrelevant. Ain't nobody they're going to come. They're going to see the pay wage. Come on, man. That's nuts. You guys need to come to the table and negotiate fairly. You guys are canceling me because I know what's going on. I have friends in the union. I have friends that are drivers, man. They tell me this stuff every other day, man. You guys are canceling meetings, dude. Like, what's the deal? Like, you guys got money to market and do this, market that, market the bus down the street. Well, give the drivers what they want, dude. Ain't like ask for $50 an hour. And that's all I got to say. Leave the 430 bus alone. Give us some better service down Hilton. If you're going to get rid of the 430 for us, put on the 492, and that solves the problem to the fast bus. That's all I got to say. And thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public? Will you please state your name and county?
Stephen Haring, Wayne. Yeah, I run a local business here downtown and I live downtown, but whenever I go into the suburbs, I like to take the bus. But, the past couple of years, I just really think SMART has not been running smart, or, the other day I was at a event or a meeting, and a few smart executives came and they said, oh, we have great competitive pay, 19 an hour for a bus driver. I mean, come on, Ann Arbor's paying 28, Chicago's paying 35, and I believe Windsor's paying 32 an hour. I mean, 19 an hour. I bet none of you in this crowd would drive a bus for 19 an hour. I mean, it just makes no sense. And, you know, I can't even say how disappointed I've been with that contract negotiation. My friend Joe did a great job summarizing it. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. I mean, it's just like the reason why, and by cutting routes that have high frequency like the 430, I mean, I just don't understand that. I mean, this whole thing. You know, I just been very disappointed. And altogether, you know, I love Flex, but I almost feel like the general manager is focused on expending Flex more than actually the fixed routes. As Flex may work in some areas, which I can totally see, like maybe Macomb Township or the rural areas, you know, you can't, I mean, there's areas that need fixed route. And, you know, another thing I don't understand, I see all these billboards, but I mean, can you use some of that money to pay the drivers more? It's not that hard, you know. And, you know, I saw a new hiring, you know, a lot of those new hiring, they're going to get the training and then they're going to go to Ann Arbor where they pay 28 an hour. They're having that problem with DDOT, and I'm pretty sure they're having it with SMART. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Is there anyone else? Yes, you can come to the podium, please state your name and county.
Hi, my name is Tracy Marshall, and I live in Wayne County. And I ride the 400 bus, which that's my lifeline to get to work. And then sometimes it don't show up as far as going home. And that's a long walk from 11 Mile and East all the way to Telegraph. So I'm just asking, please keep it. Because even though there's not a lot of us that really ride it, I ride it every day. There's this one old guy every Thursday. I see him get on, going to go grocery shop. Like clockwork, every Thursday. Can you just please keep it? Just keep it. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Please state your name and county.
My name is Joshua Lumsden. I'm in Oakland County. In August of last year, I started an experiment. I had just gotten a new job with an office in Detroit, and I decided to try taking the bus. So the experiment began. I showed up to the Phoenix Center stop in Pontiac at 6:22 a.m. to board my 462 fast Woodward to Detroit. The ride to Detroit was it was generally comfortable. It was convenient. I could relax and enjoy not being stuck in gridlock traffic on I-75. However, I quickly discovered the biggest problem with SMART. The buses don't show up. I found that there's about a 50-50 chance that the 4 p.m. bus that would take me home actually showed up, 50-50. It quickly became apparent that I couldn't plan anything after work because I didn't know if I would face a 45-minute, hour and a half, or 2+ hour delay. It got so bad that in April of this year, SMART was forced to further downsize its service on Fast Woodward. SMART is now running half as many buses on Fast Woodward as it did prior to the pandemic. And there's still reliability issues. Buses are still being cut. Now the buses are overcrowded as well because they run every hour. I'm asking the SMART board to fix the driver shortage problem with a sense of urgency. Raise pay, hire drivers, retain drivers, run more buses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and county.
Good afternoon. My name is Councilman Mikhail Goodman from the city of Pontiac, Oakland. So I am here today, one, to bring a resolution directly from City Council in Pontiac in regards to a very specific line in our city. But before I get to that, I do want to highlight a couple things. I am a longtime Smart Bus user. Before I took office on City Council, I did ride Smart regularly to get between work and high school and to get to college at OCC. So I firsthand know how important these routes are. I would, one, like to highlight the importance of expanding service and improving reliability for these routes. I personally, and outside of me being an elected official, I work for a nonprofit that did a lot of work in terms of passing that smart millage, especially in the city of Pontiac, which overwhelmingly voted for the smart millage. We did a lot of work in the opting out communities that were ended up opting in, including the city of Novi. I say all this to say there has been a long concerted effort by many people and many different groups to encourage expansion, to encourage increased reliability, because as has been mentioned before, it is very difficult to plan out your days and your life using smart. And that's very difficult. However, I do not believe that the answer is cutting service. The answer should be increasing service. It should be hiring more drivers, increasing the frequency in which these routes run. That way people are able to actually use smart as a mode of transportation. That way it becomes a primary thought and not an afterthought. That is how you get more people to use service. But in saying all that, that means that you must hire drivers. But also it means that you must operate in good faith with the drivers union, because we should not have to be sitting here saying this, especially not in Metro Detroit, that the transportation authority that we all rely on must operate in good faith with the drivers who drive the buses to make sure that the riders are safe. But separate of that, I do have a resolution directly from Pontiac City Council that passed unanimously in regards to the line Route 796 for Perry Updike. Whereas Pontiac City Council recognizes the importance of equitable and accessible public transportation services for the residents of Pontiac and surrounding communities. And whereas the Suburban Mobility Authority for Regional Transit, SMART, plays a crucial role in providing transportation options that connect individuals to education, employment, healthcare, and other essential services. Whereas Smart Route 796 serving Perry Updike has been a vital lifeline for the residents of Pontiac, ensuring their mobility and access to various opportunities on weekdays and Saturdays. And whereas the recently passed millage in support of Smart's expansion reflects the community's commitment to enhancing and improving public transit services within Pontiac and the wider region. And whereas cutting Saturday service for 796 would disproportionately impact low-income residents, essential workers, students, and individuals without access to private vehicles, exacerbating existing transportation challenges and creating inequitable barriers to opportunity. And whereas Pontiac City Council recognizes the potential economic, social, and environmental benefits of ensuring robust public transportation options, which include reduced traffic congestion, improved air quality, and enhanced regional connectivity. And whereas maintaining and expanding public transportation services, including Saturday service for Route 796, will contribute to overall well-being, inclusivity, and economic growth of Pontiac and its residents. Therefore, be it resolved that the Pontiac City Council hereby expresses its support for maintaining Saturday service for Smart Route 796 serving Perry Updike, recognizing its critical role it plays in ensuring equitable access to transportation for all residents. And further resolved that the Pontiac City Council urges Smart to prioritize the preservation of Saturday service for 796 and explore alternative cost-saving measures that would not compromise the accessibility and convenience of this essential transportation link. And further resolve, the Pontiac City Council encourages Smart to leverage the recently passed millage in favor of expansion to bolster and enhance services within Pontiac, recognizing the potential for increased ridership and community benefits. And further resolve that the Pontiac City Council commits to working collaboratively with SMART, community stakeholders, and regional partners to advocate for accessible, reliable, equitable public transportation options that promote social, economic, and environmental justice for all residents. And further resolved that copies of this resolution shall be forwarded to the Board of Directors for SMART to communicate the Pontiac City Council's position and encourage their active engagement in supporting the preservation of Saturday service for Route 796. That is the entirety of that resolution. The
Thank
last
you.
thing I want to say is Smart Flex is a good option. However, having needed to use it recently as an elected official, when the fixed routes were not available for me to get to City Hall, not having a car and not being able to request a flex for hours to be able to get to City Hall, which is only 7 minutes away from me in the Pontiac Urban Hill Zone, shows that that currently is not an alternative option. So please figure it out, because again, we are talking about reliability. Thank you.
Thank you for the resolution. Will you leave copy with the staff, please?
You can give that to Harmony Boeing and also provide her with her information. She's right there in the front row. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that will like to speak? Please state your name and county.
Good afternoon. My name is Joel Batterman. I'm a Wayne County resident, and I work for Transportation Riders United as Community Engagement Manager. It's good to be with y'all in person for the first time, and I guess upwards of 3 years. And to be honest, it's a very bittersweet moment in many ways. On the one hand, it's so exciting that after so many years, with the passage of the Oakland County-wide proposal last year, that we are finally gonna see service into communities like Novi, Waterford, Rochester Hills. You know, I think probably folks in this room between us made hundreds of phone calls, knocked on probably hundreds of doors to make that a reality. And it's so exciting that those communities are finally getting transit, both for the benefit of their residents and for others who need to get places there. But that satisfaction, unfortunately, is tempered with a lot of concern. Concern about the state of service, concern about the proposed cuts that are on the table. You know, the routes, the cuts that are being made, I understand, you know, of course we know that SMART doesn't have the operators right now to run the level of service that is scheduled. I mean, that's just the reality. But any cuts do cause a lot of pain for riders. The routes that are proposed to be cuts are certainly not the highest ridership routes, but as I heard someone say once, low ridership is not no ridership. For Ms. Marshall, you know, for many other people, these routes that are proposed to be discontinued, whether on Saturdays or in the case of the 400 in its entirety, these routes are lifelines. And so what True would like to urge is that these service cuts be only temporary until such time as SMART is able to bring on the operators needed to run a full schedule. It's really particularly concerning that the communities that have supported SMART for so many years, communities like Pontiac, like Royal Oak, that these communities are receiving cuts in service after, you know, the hundreds of millions of dollars over the decades.
Your time is up, Joe.
Oh, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your concern.
Is there anyone else from the public that will? Please state your name and county.
Hello there, members of the board and everyone in attendance. I'm probably a pretty familiar face to you at this point, but for the record, my name's Lucas Lasecki and I hail from Farmington Hills, Oakland County. I wanted to start my comment today by expressing my appreciation for the great work done by Sean and his counterparts here in the scheduling department in creating this plan for expansion. I think, as much as I'm disappointed by the cut of the 400, which I do ride a lot, my transit app will bear me out on that. But as much as I'm disappointed about the cuts, I truly believe, having talked to Sean, having gone to all 4 of the hearings, that they did the best they could with the resources they were given. So we need to talk about the resources they were given, because the driver shortage is still a crisis. It's still impacting the baseline ability of the authority to deliver the service they promise. Even with the cuts of the 462 down to 30 and the 710 down to 45, runs are still being canceled at an alarming rate. Every time I come to this board, I have a new anecdote. This time I was going on some errands in Southgate and Westland back on Monday. I dodged cuts on the 140, 160, and 210 by 1 run. Had I gone an hour later on any of those, I would have been stranded. Dangerously close. And I've been stranded in similar situations many times, just usually not that far from home. But I last talked about this 3 months ago, and nothing has apparently gotten better. In fact, it's even gotten worse. I know, because my good old reliable 740 usually never gets cut. Then the week after the cuts happened, 3 times in 1 week, my morning run 842 was cut. So I really think the board needs to act with more urgency in solving this issue. I've seen the hiring efforts. I've seen the new recruits training with the established drivers. That's great. It's great to see these new faces join the SMART family, but more needs to be done. More needs to be done because you're losing riders, you're losing reliability, and you're not gaining any new riders. For an example, a professor I work with at OCC, her car broke down. She lives on a fixed route, and I suggested that she take SMART while her car was in the shop for a week. After that week, she swore off ever riding SMART again because it was so unreliable. She was stranded at campus a number of times just in the span of a week because of the run cuts. So it's still a systemic problem. 3 months later and 6 months without a contract, you're just not paying the drivers enough, and the conditions aren't good enough. I've talked to a number of drivers echoing that sentiment that if you want to attract drivers, if you want people to drive Gillig BRTs rather than just go work at McDonald's, you're going to need to pay them more than $19 an hour and improve conditions. So we'd really like to see the board and SMART management engage in some more fair and enthusiastic bargaining, if you will, to get this situation resolved immediately, because this has gone on for far too long, far too many people being stranded, far too many
Thank
buses
you.
being
Your
cut.
time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that will be all, Chairman?
Thank you. We move to next item, the chairperson report. I think don't have one, but I have a little remark. As we with the new leadership, Mr. Ferrell, it's not new anymore, but the SMART going through reorganizing and trying to address many of the issues the public need and see that could be enhancement in the system. We in the process, and that take a little time to complete all those study and try to put equipment and driver to implement what really be a good connection for the people. So a little bit of patience. I think we on the right path to enhance the transportation system, I mean SMART. With that, I move to the general manager's remark.
For the sake of time, since we missed the meeting, I'll just briefly say that a lot of what I was going to talk about is going to get covered in the board briefings A, and then a combination of B and C. And then there's also the fact that we have started our process with Baker and Associates in terms of community outreach and engagement. to be able to determine and get feedback about what the future of service smart looks like in Oakland. We'll also be doing it in Macomb and Wayne as well. And we'll come back to the board with that. I'd also like to take a point to thank my coworkers and members of the board for your kind words and condolences with the loss of my sister. It's the only sibling that I had, so it's been kind of interesting life now. But I do thank you all. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair and we can get to the board briefings.
Thank you.
Mr. Ferrell, I wanted to add one more note
Yes.
as well. In talking about recruitment, I do want to, because this is an opportunity to promote an event that's coming up next month. And that is the Come Drive a Bus with Us event that we're having next month in Pontiac at the M1 Concourse. It will be June 13th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. We are promoting this as a hiring event so that people can come out. And if you have any concerns about what it's like to actually drive one of our vehicles, you can come get on the bus with one of our experienced trainers at SMART. You drive the concourse. We figured that's kind of an exciting thing and a draw to get people to come out and to give it a shot. We'll have our fixed route bus, we'll have a paratransit vehicle, and we'll have an electric vehicle that people can try. We're also seeking to hire mechanics. We don't just have an operator shortage, we also have a mechanic shortage. So in terms of our maintenance program, you have to have buses that can roll and people that can drive them. So we'll have our maintenance team out with the hoods up on each of our vehicles, talking to people about what the training program looks like at SMART, and we'll have on-site hiring at this event as well. So we are doing what we believe is a very creative effort, and the urgency is there in terms of recruitment. We are, and we'll hear from our Vice President of Human Resources in just a moment on our hiring update, but just want to talk about that event. It will take place June 13th, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. We will be there all day, and we are inviting the community to come join us, learn about SMART. We'll have representation from planning as well as our other administrative areas, as we need to hire in all areas in this organization. So that is something that is coming up. We're very excited about it. Our director, our Vice President of External Affairs, Mr. Bernard Parker, is running point for that project. So if you have any questions about that or want to be supportive in terms of our promotional materials, please do not hesitate to reach out to him and let him know. And the other side of that as well is we will be attending next week. Next week, the Mackinac Policy Conference. We are headed to Mackinac with the express intention to, one, have a conversation about recruitment and hiring. We recognize that it's a crisis. Dwight and I attended the CEO's conference in Houston just last week. And what we heard from CEOs across the nation that run large to mid-sized to small transit operations is all of them are experiencing a similar crisis in hiring operators. And we exchanged information and ideas. We talked about what it takes to really become an attractive employer. And as we continue in our negotiations, I believe the good faith efforts are being put forward to do exactly what we're hearing about people asking us to do today. The other side of that is we talked a lot about technology and the role it is playing in the changing face of public transportation and service delivery. And that is a really important conversation. Generative artificial intelligence is playing a huge role with respect to how to keep stations and bus stops clean. With the technology that exists today, there's a lot that can be done. And we're really trying to be forward facing while also maintaining the traditions at SMART as well, because we cannot continue to be stagnant. We have to think about the next step in the growth. So I really did appreciate the time we spent. It was a weekend worth it to go and interact with those other CEOs and recognize that our problems are not just specific to Southeast Michigan, but really truly across the board with all transit properties. And lastly, while I have the mic, I just want to introduce, as we love to do, and we have a new employee that takes the time to join us for a board meeting. We want to introduce them and let them be seen. And so today we have with us Ms. Candace Fowler. She is starting with us as our new Drug and Safety Compliance EEO, and EEO is an Equal Employment Opportunity and Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Coordinator. So just want to introduce Candace. She comes to us with a lot of background in office administration and compliance, and we're really excited to have her. So hello, Candace. Did you stand up or are you being shy? There you go. Stand up and wave. That is Candace. So we're happy to have her on board. We are doing our best to hire at a quick clip, but definitely trying to bring in quality candidates that we know will be successful at SMART. So with that, thank you, Mr. Ferrell, for the moment to provide those updates.
Thank you. We now move to item 10, item A, HR hiring update. McKinney Jackson, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Since April, we didn't have our last meeting, so this report is data from April as well. In April, we had 2 hiring fairs, one in Novi on April 22nd, and one in Southfield on April 27th.
And fix the camera, please.
I'll start over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in April, we had 2 hiring fairs. One in Novi on April 26th, one in Southfield on April 27th. During the month of April and May, we've hired close to 50 new employees. We have 20 fixed route operators, 16 12 connector operators, 3 data clerk technicians, 3 CSSAs, 2 mechanics, 1 HR assistant, 2 IT support coordinators, and our employee that was just introduced, 1 external drug and alcohol compliance assistant. So within the month of April and May, as I said, we've hired close to 50 new employees. That's SMART. So HR is working diligently to get new employees here. We will have, as the Deputy General Manager mentioned, we will have hiring fair on June 13th at the M1 Concourse in Pontiac from 10 to 7. Then late in July and August, we will have 2 more job fairs, one in Southwest Detroit and the other in Macomb County.
Thank you, McKinney. And one addition to that event on June 13th, I think our team has really done an excellent job in trying to provide wraparound services for folks looking for a job. And so Michigan Works, Oakland County Michigan Works is going to also partner with us to be there on June 13th, and they're providing services. And I just want to promote some of what they're doing because I think it's a really heavy lift that they're taking on our behalf because they recognize the importance of the operator shortage. And that is, 1, they are offering to pay for transportation for any hires that we have for the first 2 weeks, the 3 weeks that they are with us as an organization, and also looking at some opportunities to provide subsidy for childcare for them until they can get their first paycheck. So they're doing both of those things. We're also reaching out to, there's some nonprofits that work with folks that have suspended licenses for things other than major infractions such as DUI, but something like a parking ticket that cost them trouble and they had to lose their license over it, so that they can help reinstate licenses for people who have a hindrance to are unable to apply for the job without a valid license today. And we're also looking at bringing in second chance program counselors to talk with folks about how to get into those programs so that we can really seek a job, a pool of applicants that really, I believe, is not sought us out historically, but we want to show that we are being very intentional, that we want to bring people in, we want to give people second chances. As our general manager always says, trouble doesn't last always, and we want to make sure that that message is being promoted throughout the region so people know that SMART is a safe place you can come and get some opportunity and grow. And thank you, Mikey, for your report. SGC's disappeared.
Thank you. We take now B and C together, Oakland County expansion in a public hearing. Harmony Lloyd, please.
Good afternoon.
We need a motion for the public hearing. No, okay.
So in your board packet is a extensive detail of the process that SMART has
conducted to consider the Oakland County service modifications. Smart staff has conducted 3 in-person public hearings and 1 virtual public engagement session via Zoom. Staff posted the proposed changes and notified the public through the website, on the inside of buses, and on all social media. They provided extensive information about the proposed service modifications, including a narrated PowerPoint that was viewed approximately 300 times. In addition, comments were gathered via email and regular mail. And following SMART policy, a notice of the hearings was placed in the Detroit Free Press, Detroit News, the Michigan Chronicle, and in the SMART ticket sales office and on SMART's website 20 days in advance of the first hearing. The hearings were held at Oakland University, Berkeley City Hall, Farmington Hills Community Center, Hawk Building, and on Zoom. And they had a total of 100 residents, over 100 residents that participated at these hearings. So, going.
So I would say that's good. Okay,
The resolution, want to go into the resolution? That's next. So if you have any questions on the public
Any
hearing
questions?
process,
Seeing none, thank you for the report. We move to item 11, financial report, the third quarter financial report.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was gonna try and share a screen, but it looks like there's about a 20-second delay on the monitor behind us, so I might try and do it the old-fashioned way here. Within your board packet, there is the third quarter financial report. I'd like to start on the statement of revenues and expenses operational. I'm just going to point out a couple of highlights and then turn it over to the board for any questions that they might have. Overall, SMART is reporting revenues under budget by about 3.9% or about $3.7 million. This is primarily a result of lower than expected spending. So we have not recorded as much reimbursement revenue that we normally get from the state. That's the primary cause of the revenues being under budget. Moving on, as a result of the ongoing driver shortage, SMART is also under budget. On the next page, you'll see the total wage and wage-related expenditures are about $13.1 million under budget, or 17.31%. And again, that is primarily due to the ongoing staffing shortages. On the next page, operational expenditures. SMART is over budget by about $450,000. This is primarily a result of larger than expected vehicle liability payments during the year. Settlements throughout the period have just been higher amounts and at a higher frequency than we had budgeted for. We are implementing, and I'll go a little bit more into that in the budget in the future, some programs to try and mitigate and then put in some safety training in place to help mitigate and reduce those types of expenditures. Lastly, moving on, the only point I want to make is that overall we are approximately $12.3 million under budget. So SMART's financial position remains very healthy, even with regard to the additional vehicle liability payments. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the balance sheet, but I do want to say SMART's liquidity remains very, very strong. And there is no reason to believe that SMART won't be able to meet its current or long-term obligations. Having said that, I'd like to turn it over to the board for any questions that they might have or anything else I could dive into a little deeper.
Okay, Mr. MANIKO.
Just a question. I know we have about, I think, 933,000 of unobligated COVID-19 transit funds that were subject now to federal decision. Have we obligated those dollars? I know there was a little concern from like Harry Transit about their small share of that, but I was wondering where we were at in that process.
SMART has obligated about $20 million, but has is in the process of obligating, and we're trying to expedite as quickly as possible, obligating the remaining American Rescue Plan funds, which do remain unobligated.
I guess I'm a little uneasy with the conditions in Washington, and once an agreement is reached, that they'll claw back all of that money very quickly. So I would hope that maybe if you could give us an update at our next board meeting, make sure that we try to obligate those monies. It's extremely important as I look at the budgets for Hilarie Transit, which I represent in the county. We certainly, I think our budget is a little under what it was last year, projected for 24, and want to make sure that every dollar counts. And if we can do that, I would most appreciate it.
Yep, definitely.
Any other question? Seeing none, thank you. And now we move to item 12, new businesses. Item A, resolution, service modification with service equity. This is Harmony Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start before I read the resolution. I'd like to thank the planning and scheduling staff, many of whom are here, that did a massive amount of preparation, worked with me at the public hearings, answered citizens' questions, and stayed for hours after the public hearings to go into details on routes. I just would like to acknowledge the work that they've done on the service modification. You're back there.
Thank you.
So staff recommends board approval of the resolution approving the Oakland County service changes along with the accompanying service equity analysis and authorizing submittal of the analysis to the FTA to remain eligible for funding. In February 2023, the SMART Board of Directors approved the Oakland County Service Plan. This plan included multiple areas of improvements, changes, and adjustments to SMART services over the next several months. Staff, in conjunction with Oakland County officials, have selected the initial set of changes. Staff has conducted all necessary procedures to begin the implementation process. In addition to the improvements identified in the plan, SMART staff is recommending additional service modifications based on duplication of service, ridership levels, and efficiencies. Also, a requirement of the FTA, whenever major service changes are proposed, either adding routes or route extension, or reducing or eliminating service by more than 25% in either route revenue miles or route length, a service equity analysis is necessary. The equity analysis details what, if any, effects the modifications have on minority or low-income populations in the SMART service area. And that service equity analysis is included in your board packet. I'll take any questions.
Any question? Seeing none, thank you. Good job. Item B, smart fiscal year.
We need to vote on the
we need a
resolution.
motion, Yeah, okay. Need a motion, I think motion made by
Support.
John. Okay, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, item B. Smart fiscal year 2024 annual application for Michigan Capital and Operating Financial Assistance.
Thank you.
Ryan, yeah, thank you.
the finance department is seeking approval for management to execute our annual application with MDOT. Essentially, this is our contract with the state for all state source funding, including the Act 51 local bus operating assistance programs, which is by which they reimburse us for a percentage of our operating expenditures, as well as their federal grant dollars match 20% matching for certain grants. So again, this is a revenue item as opposed to an expenditure. But we do need board approval to execute the application.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the resolution for the SMART fiscal year 2024 annual application for the Michigan Capital and Operating Financial Assistance.
Support. Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Mr. MANIKO.
Just a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. Could you, I'm not sure of the page, but it's the first numbers page of the functional operating budget. Under Act 51, you have a variety of other state grants. Could you just tell me what those might be? What are they? You had about 4,163,000.
So you're looking at the operating
Right.
expenses, the Act 51 section, the 45 million, then the other numbers below it.
Yeah, the other number below, what are the, I assume those are the other state grants?
So the 1,459,000, the 146, and the 342.
Well, this would be 4,163,500. It'd be about the sixth line down under the second line down under the state of Michigan, under the revenue. Act 51, which is 43,500,000. Then the projected for 24 is 45 million. And then the other state grants remain the same, which then comes to an operating revenue total of 49,063,000.
Sorry, could you say that one more
I
time?
think you're on a different.
Is that from
That's
the
a
quarterly
different-
financial report?
You're on the capital item B, the capital operating.
I think you're looking at the quarterly.
Would
Maybe,
All right.
or is it?
it would help if they have number on those pages. You could
You're
refer to the
looking at
number.
our budget. Right now, we're talking about the application for Michigan
Quarterly.
capital and
He's already
operating.
in the budget. So
Yeah.
he's moved a little further.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of similar items and similar titles. Yeah.
Here, we're on this one. Right here. I know. Yeah, we're right here. Right, so that's not true.
Thing would help if the report of that size have a page number. And person could refer to the page number right away.
Right.
Okay.
I think this is okay. Yeah, there's a number of questions I have on that.
Yeah.
Are you
Was there any question with regard to the Act 51 amounts included in the annual application?
Any act, no.
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 But if there's no questions, if maybe a motion for to approve the resolution.
Tell Mr. Monaco. Let me know if you finish.
No, that's fine.
You okay?
I have questions on this. Executive summary that came in a separate packet.
Okay. Okay. Motion in order, motion made and supported.
Yes. JP and I.
All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carry. Item C, amendment to the fiscal year 2022-23 general operating budget, increase marketing and expenditure.
Thank
Ryan?
you again.
Thank you.
So this item goes in conjunction with the next item, which Bernard will be talking a little bit more about. Essentially, we've had some additional marketing activities for which we've utilized nearly the extent of our 23 budget. And in order to continue those programs, we are asking for an extension of that budget to continue certain marketing and community outreach activities. We will be utilizing unspent budget in other areas, particularly wages, to fund these amounts. So there will be no net change to the overall budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any question? Seeing none, motion in order for. Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next item, item D, authorization to approve purchase order change action. POCA number 1 for additional funding for general advertising service. Ryan? Oh,
Good.
Mr. Parker, I tried to bypass you. No.
Good
Thank
afternoon,
you.
Mr. Chair and to board members. Again, thank you very much. Bernard Parker, Vice President of External Affairs. I'm here today to ask for your approval of a change order for Berline Group in the amount of $1,540,000 for general advertising services. This contract was originally approved by this board October 28th in 2021. Again, for general advertising services. The contract itself was a 3-year contract for $1.5 million with a 2-year, 1-year option. During the 23 budget year, this particular contract was dedicated to several important initiatives. Let me slow down a little bit. First, introducing our brand position, our new logo. Second, our tagline, Life Smart You. A new design to the fleets, enhancing our brand perception in Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne counties. Implementing an aggressive education campaign in the 3 counties to optimize the success of our millage vote back in November. And then lastly, positioning SMART as a regional leader in transportation. We continue to do these things through social media, through, again, advertising, through brand awareness, through engagements, public engagements. And as you've heard by our deputy manager, as well as our HR vice president, we have an event on June 13th for hiring in Pontiac, city of Pontiac, to let folks know all the wonderful things that we're doing with SMART and to encourage folks to become drivers. So in closing, I ask this board if you would please approve this contract for $1,540,000.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. The board is pleasure.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the POCA for additional funding for general advertising services.
Motion been made, supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, item E, adoption of the fiscal year 2024 operating budget, restricted operating budget, and the proposed fiscal year 2024, fiscal year 2028 capital budget. Ryan?
I'm going to try and share my screen for this one. Although it might not be working. We might have to do this one the old-fashioned way too. There we go. Okay. We will try and work around the lag here.
There you go. It's up on the screen. I can see it. It'll pop up here in a minute.
So the Smart Budget Committee did meet on May 3rd to go over the fiscal year 2024 capital and operating budgets in much greater detail. What I'd like to do today is go through those at a little bit of a higher level And then turn it over to the board and answer any additional questions that they might have on any of the particular line items. I'd like to start by just talking through what is included in the fiscal year 24 budget. Within the financial review section, we present the budgeted income statement in two different formats. One, the functional version, where we lay out how much we're going to spend by service area, so fixed route versus connector versus microtransit service. And the operational version, where we break out the budget by line item category, meaning wages versus fuel versus marketing expenditures. Further, we do present a restricted budget. These are the monies that we pass through SMART from other funding agencies to our community partners and other nonprofit agencies within the SMART area. There are two graphs that we'll touch on in a little bit more detail here in just a second. We do also outline the major revenue and expenditure assumptions included in the budget, as well as a breakdown of the overall headcount in the staffing review. The functional review breaks out the three major categories of expenditures: fixed route, connector, and general and administrative, in a little bit more detail, so that an inquiring party may get some more information on exactly how those expenditures break down. Further, we do detail the major sources of community support, detailing the municipal and community credit programs by community, as well as lastly, we've got the capital budget, which breaks down the by funding source and by project, what SMART is going to expend with capital grant resources. There's going to be a little bit of a lag, but moving on, I do want to talk just a little bit about the overall operating revenues, and it'll pop up in just a second here. But I am happy to report overall that SMART does have a balanced budget, and we have seen a pretty major expansion in revenue that provides for a number of pretty exciting things for us to do this year, including some hours and miles expansions. We've got some pretty significant hours allocated to about a week per employee or per operating employee of training services, as well as some pretty major facilities, route facilities and terminal facilities enhancements to improve just the overall worker shop experience, as well as in the route facilities, the rider experience. Overall property taxes do make up about 56% of our total revenue, and that is inclusive. The major increase there is the additional monies received from Oakland County, although there is expected for the 2023 levy in all counties a growth assumption of included for all property tax levies. SMART is lucky enough that the state of Michigan, being the great partner that it is, they will cover approximately 29% of our total revenues through a reimbursement program, as well as matching certain federal operating dollars that we do have programmed in. Our total federal sources end up at about 9% of our total operating dollars. Now, keeping in mind that this does not include any capital resources. These would be things like our allocations of capital resources for preventative maintenance, mainly. Overall, the fare revenues or operating revenues, as they're described on this chart for SMART, are only 3.4% of the budget. We have observed a slight decrease in the overall fare box recoveries per rider. So we have factored that into the budget as well. It's going to take just a second to flip the slide again, but overall, For operations, excluding microtransit services, SMART's expending about 71% of their budget on operating activities. Including microtransit, it's about 75%. Overall, SMART is expending about 14% of its total resources on administrative service stuff, which at 14%, many of our peer groups have an administrative burden well higher than our own. And additionally, we've got about 12% of the SMART budget covering legacy retiree healthcare liabilities, as well as community and equipment purchases in another category. I do want to point out just a couple of other quick things before I turn it over to any questions. In a second here, you'll see overall SMART is planning to expend $71.1 million is our total operating budget for the year. The way that breaks down as follows here, we've got a comparison of 23 to 24 by service area. Overall, we've got about a $15.4 million increase of overall expenditures for fixed route service, 4.7 for connector, and 700,000 for microtransit. What these will enable us to do, we've budgeted an increase of connector service hours of miles, increase of about 14.7%, and fixed route miles of about 4.5%. Now, those aren't quite equal, just the way the schedule works out. In order to provide the required connector service to the additional areas, it was a little more expansive. So it's never going to be an exact one-to-one relationship between the connector and the fixed route service. That also is inclusive of about a 9% increase in overall hours. That does include some pretty extensive safety training programs per employee, with the idea of making sure that we've got the safest and most well-trained operators out there. Other line items, you can see the general and administrative and community credits all have increases. We have eliminated the line item for overall COVID-19 expenditures. So that is a reduction of $3 million, but we did increase, just given some uncertainties, the overall general contingency to $1.8 million. That concludes the specific line items that I wanted to talk about here, but I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Any question, Mr. MANIKO?
No.
Now, you prepared.
Okay, just under the operating budget, under the revenue section of the state of Michigan, you had listed the other state grants of over $4 million. I was just wondering what those were for.
The $4,163,500.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So that's primarily two items. That is the state match of our preventative maintenance grant. So we're utilizing a total of $10 million for preventative maintenance of grant funding within the operating budget. So that's going to be $2 million of that is the state match component. The other component is a local community stabilization authority allocation that we get from the state of Michigan that has to do with receipts that they receive from telecom utility services within right-of-ways. They charge a fee and they kick that fee down to various other agencies. It just is another type of support that we get from the state.
On that same page, under general administration or expenses, you had mentioned 14%. But here you have over 17% of administration.
So it is a 17% increase in overall general and administrative expenditures. Whereas the overall allocation of general administrators, so general and administrative expenses is only a 14% slice of the pie, whereas this is a 17% increase. We've got some pretty neat ideas as it relates to process improvement line items, including an overall strategic plan, a route facilities strategic plan. There is a bunch of money in there allocated for a financial system overhaul as well. So there's a number of projects that are included in there that partially account for that increase.
Under the operational budget, and this is a few pages. Part 2 expenses of 3. Somewhere as I was reading this, you mentioned that fuel, including diesel and propane, you might see some volatile numbers in that, but you actually show a decrease in the projected budget of about $800,000. I was wondering what you said earlier and then what transpired here in the budget seem to be two different things, and I was just wondering what caused your decrease in the 2024 budget, particularly for fuels.
So as the main input that goes into our estimate of fuel is we take a look at what the most recent fuel futures as we were preparing this in March. And as we were looking at it, we were expecting about $3.10 for diesel was the long-term estimate for diesel futures at that point. Taking into consideration for volatility, Smart estimated approximately, no, I think it was exactly $3.30. So we gave ourselves a little bit of buffer on the diesel fuel futures estimate. There is some, so we do have some increased miles as well. So that kind of, you do have a little bit of an expansion, but as compared to our 23 budget, we budgeted diesel fuel at $3.60 per mile, or excuse me, per gallon. So overall, the per gallon price did come down.
On that same page, you had almost a 70% increase in vehicle insurance rates. Is that because of new vehicles or an accumulated number of more vehicles?
So with any increase in miles, there will be an increase in accidents as well, unfortunately. So we are a significant portion of that does relate to increased overall miles that Smart is planning on running. In addition, we have seen an increase in the overall payout per occurrence. So we are currently estimating about 37 cents per mile of vehicle liability as opposed to about 32 in the prior year.
And one of the things that Ryan mentioned was we have a number of training initiatives planned for this budget year for operators in order to be able to reduce that number. It's going to take some time for it to take hold. But while we saw the increase here, we're expecting in outer years it to go down based on the training that we're providing to operators.
On that next page, you had a sizable increase under administration for professional services. Is that part of the lobbyist efforts, or you went from 1.6 million to 3.1 million on the second line item on the next page?
Great question. So 200,000 of that is the lobbyist efforts. The remaining 1.3 million relates to those process improvement consulting projects, including a strategic plan, facilities route strategic plan, the financial system overhaul,
maintenance assessment of vehicles. There's a number of things. One of the, I tell you what we can do is at the next board meeting, we can bring to the board a list of what those expected professional services are going to be and what the expected outcome is. I'm happy to do that.
My last question was related to the RTA and the distribution of the Detroit region's funding, which annually takes place. And at one time, we were about 33% of the total. And know that that figure had reversed itself in 1989, 1990. We were now at around over 50%, I think, or close to that. You're indicating that's going to stay the same for 24. The distribution, that would be under federal sources, FTA section 5307.
Correct. Yep.
So we still haven't clawed back the loss that Oakland County pointed out a long time ago, of about 16%. So we're still subsidizing the Detroit system by 16%. And we were happy to get that 17% back that we were losing. So I guess there's a draw there somewhere. That's the last question I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. MANIKO. Any other question? John?
Ryan, I'd like to
Sorry.
thank you and your team, not only for the insights during the budget subcommittee and also my colleague, Mr. RASEGAN from Oakland County, having fun on that end. Mr. Chair, if there's no further discussion, I also would like to make a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2024 operating budget, restricted operating budget, and the proposed fiscal year 2024 to 28 capital budget.
With support. Support. Motion been made and supported. Any other discussion? Here and none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carried. Item F. Fiscal year 2024 municipal credit, community credit and purchase of services agreement. Mr. Ryan.
Me again. So within the budget, we do have included that we just approved all of the community support line items. The next pages that you have detail the specific amounts by community. In order for SMART to make those expenditures and execute those contracts, though, we do need board approval. So this line item, or excuse me, I am seeking board authorization to execute the contracts for municipal community credits and purchase of service agreements as outlined in the fiscal year 24 budget.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2024 municipal credits.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item H.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
hi. I'm sorry, this is Hilarie to interrupt, but
Oh, Hilarie, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm sorry I could not be there today in person. I do want to, and I've had some interaction, and Brett can probably fill in some of the details. I do want to just put a flag in the ground in terms of the municipal credit program. We've been looking into this in Oakland County, and I would like, Ryan, if we can set up a separate conversation about this. I am concerned that some communities are not getting the reimbursement that they may have been allocated, primarily because there's some confusion about how you apply for that. I don't know that there's an online system. I would like us to take a fresh look at that. Because we've been hearing from communities about long delays in getting their municipal credits from SMART. And I would like to try to seek some improvements in that system going forward. And Brett, I don't know if you can help fill out the details, but I just, since we were covering that, I just wanted to kind of speak up and let everybody know that that's something that we look forward to working on more.
Ryan and Kristen may have emailed you. We took a look at the manual that outlines the process, and it's heavily focused toward community credits, but it seems to be quite lacking in any process associated with those that only get municipal credits. So that's I think the main point. Some communities, to no one's fault, I think, feel that when they sign the contract, that's all they need to do. So I think it'll require maybe a meeting with some staff at the county and kind of map out that process more clearly. As some communities were not aware of the process for municipal credits only.
We will definitely get something on the books.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Chamberlain?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for stepping in for me today.
Anytime for you. Thank you. Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carry. Item G, contract to participate in DTE charging forward e-fleet charging infrastructure, enabling rebate program. Mr. Wright.
Thank you. So our friends over at DTE have an incentive program to help those who are electrifying their fleets. SMART has been invited to participate, and essentially what this would allow us to do is receive a rebate from DTE for terminal charging equipment that we install of up to $70,000 per charging station. Again, this is a revenue contract, not an expense line item. The only thing is it would, if we do get the rebate, we would make an agreement to use the charging stations for a 5-year period of time. However, our electric vehicles are slated to last much longer than that. So that should not be a problem for us whatsoever. Finance Department is seeking authorization to execute this contract.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item H, authorization to approve a purchase order change action for POCA number 4 for additional time incurred for financial audit service. Ryan?
We are hoping to increase the authorization for the audit contract as a result of several items that were are now required audit accounting standards or additional audit risks that were not scoped into the original audit contract, including 2 new standards related to lease contracts and subscription-based information technology agreements that are going to require a pretty heavy lift on SMART's end to implement, as well as on our contractor to review and make sure that those are great, as well as additional procedures, audit procedures required as a result of all the additional federal relief funding that we have received recently that was not originally scoped into the contract. We're requesting an increase of the authorization for $44,675.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support. Motion been made and supported. In a discussion. Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item I, authorization to approve a purchase order change for POCA 1 for additional fund for bus simulator. So right. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Burke.
Good afternoon, SMART's Board of Directors, General Manager Ferrell, Deputy General Manager Gunter, SMART staff, and participating members of the public. On behalf of SMART's Maintenance Department, it's the recommendation that the board adopts the resolution increasing the contract amount to cover the additional funds for the bus simulator project to the LaSalle Group. This is at a cost not to exceed $10,106. On August 21st, 2019, SMART's board approved a contract with the LaSalle Group to install the bus simulator project at the Hines building. The maintenance department has deemed that more funds is needed to cover additional work to complete this simulator project. This increase is not to exceed $10,106, and this pricing has been determined fair and reasonable. Any questions?
Is that the 10,106? It's increased beyond the normal price?
Yes, that's over the not to exceed amount. Yes.
Okay. We have any idea what's the price?
The total cost?
Yes.
Total cost will come to $406,604.
Thank you. Any other question?
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carry. Item J, authorization for purchase order change action for POCA. The number is not there, fire extinguisher and maintenance contract additional fund.
It is the
Mr.
recommendation.
Hurt,
Is the recommendation that the board adopts a contract change to add additional funds to the fire extinguisher and maintenance contract for Gallagher Fire and Equipment at a total cost not to exceed $21,143.20. On August 29th, 2022, Smart entered into a contract with Gallagher Fire Equipment for fire extinguishers and maintenance. Smart Maintenance Department has a need for additional funds for the Oakland Fire Suppression System repair and inspections. This change order in amount not to exceed $21,143.20 is needed for additional funds to repair and inspect the Oakland Fire Suppression System. This cost exceeds the allowable threshold as stipulated at Smart's board policy number 1. Pricing has been termed fair and reasonable. Any questions?
any question for Mr. Burt?
Mr. Chair, move approval.
Support. Motion been made and supported. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Bless you. Item K, authorization to award a contract for bus wrap. Mr. Burt.
Yes, it is the board recommendation adopts the attached resolution authorizing an award of a contract for bus wraps for the smart bus fleet. To Turbo Images, this is a 1-year contract with 2 1-year renewals at a cost not to exceed $973,203. Smart has a need for bus wraps for some of its fleet and require maintenance and repair services throughout the years. The award contract shall provide design services, wrap installation, and wrap removal services. Any questions?
Any question on that?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mark.
Canadian dollars or American pounds?
These American dollars. It is a Canadian-based company that does work inside of the US. I think they do work for more than like 35 municipalities over the nation.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next item L, authorization to award contract for the propane auto gas for the connector fleet. Mr. Burt.
It is the recommendation that the board adopts the attached resolution authorizing a contract for propane auto gas for Smart's connector fleet to Webster and Garner. This is a 1-year contract with no renewal options at a cost not to exceed $1,482,000. Smart has a need for liquid propane gas to provide fuel for its propane fuel cutaway buses. The use of the propane powered vehicles has reduced Smart's operating expenses due to the lower cost of propane versus diesel. It's estimated that Smart consumes 750,000 gallons of propane annually. Any questions?
Any question for Mr. Burt?
Mr. Chair, move approval.
Support. Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carried. Item O. Scheduling software maintenance and repairs, training, and consultant. Mr. Evans.
We missed M.
Oh, we miss an M. Okay,
We got one more
I'll
item.
take it back. One option. Give you a break. Authorization to award contract for barrel and sludge wastewater removal and disposal service. Mr. Burt.
Okay,
You're
it is
not
a
free yet.
recommendation that the board adopts the attached resolution, award a contract for barrel and sludge wastewater removal and disposal services to Burke's Works Environmental LLC. This is a one-year contract with 2 one-year renewal options at a cost not to exceed $103,500. Any questions?
Any question for Mr. Burt?
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Now we could move to item O.
We got one more.
I was in a rush for children software maintenance and trapeze training and consultant. Mr. Evans, now it's your turn.
Good afternoon. Staff is requesting authorization to award contract to Trapeze Scheduling Software Maintenance, to Trapeze for scheduling software and maintenance and training and consulting. Smart utilizes several Trapeze software modules to support its fixed route operations as well as connector operations. To streamline and coordinate the annual maintenance agreements, the Information and Technology Department has combined all various software maintenance agreements and the upgrade costs into one purchase order for 5 years of funding. The cost is not to exceed $1,229,670,000 and available for any questions.
Any question for Mr. Evans? Mr. MANIKO?
Was this originally a sole source contract?
This maintenance agreement, yes, was a sole source contract because it has to be supported by the developer.
Do we have to go through that TA for approval? Or-
Trapeze is I'll get out in a second. A proprietary software. They're the only game in town as far as this is concerned. So anybody who's a transit system, and there are several of them across the country who are doing this, have to go back to Trapeze.
Any other question?
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carried. Item P, authorization to enter into interlocal agreement with the city of Dearborn for pilot program to provide subsidized smart flex micro transit ride within the city of Dearborn.
Good afternoon.
Yes, Mr. Whitehouse.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm here on behalf of SMART staff, asking the board to approve an interlocal agreement between SMART and the city of Dearborn to subsidize flex rides within the city of Dearborn. The city of Dearborn would like to pay $1 of the $2 base fare for rides that originate and end within the city of Dearborn. The terms of this agreement, or the range of this agreement, will start July 1st and end with the VIA contract expiration on December 15th. I want to also mention, as part of this project, the city of Dearborn reached out and asked SMART about the compatibility of making the app fully integrated with Arabic. And we have worked with VIA to make that happen. So as of July 1st, the app will be 100% integrated with the Arabic language. So with that, I will entertain any questions.
Go ahead.
Any great work on this one. Really looking forward to the expansion of the service, not only into the city of Dearborn, but very much applaud the language application too. And I'll move approval, Mr. Chair.
Support. Motion been made and supported. Any other question? I think I'm excited about that because I was talking with Mr. Ferrell and Tiffany, and earlier, maybe that would be the beginning to serve another communities in Wayne County. So in Oakland and Macomb too. Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Now, item 13, we move to closed session. We need a motion for that.
Make a motion that we move into closed session.
Roll call, please. Motion been made
Chair-
and supported.
Chairperson Hilarie Chambers will be joining us by cell phone as a non-voting member. Vice Chairperson, Mr. ABDUL HAIDOUS,
Yes.
Mr. Royce MANIKO, Mr. BRET RASEGAN.
Yes.
Mr. John Paul Rea.
Yes.
Ms. VICKI WOLBER.
Yes.
Okay,